question I'm often asked is, what is a charismatic man? What are his or her traits and how he behaves and so on? And so I'm recording this video to clear things up. The definition of a charismatic man can be a bit vague and can mean different things for different persons. For example, it has religious connotations. It also has fascist connotations. We can define based on leadership abilities and so on. But we're not basing our teachings on any kind of these definitions or traits. We're basing our own Charisma School definitions on what is a charismatic person. We're also not going for the academic research done on charismatic persons, charismatic leaders, and so on. Charisma School has its own definitions and its own way of viewing a charismatic person. Keep in mind that if you asked an academic, the answer on the traits of a charismatic person would be different than what you are hearing from this video. We are not aiming at an academic definition of charisma. And if you are searching for this, you need to really search elsewhere. In our videos, courses, and articles, we'll only talk about our Charisma School ideal. And if you identify with your ideal, then you can listen to the other videos and courses since this is what we aim at. So I'll tell you now a bit of a story of the past masters of the Charisma School teachings, so you can understand a bit better where we are coming from. The early Charisma School masters were true Renaissance men. You'll see them as accomplished painters, sculptors, writers, world travelers, public performers, and so on. If you need a model for them, think Leonardo da Vinci. They studied different subjects and practiced different arts. Most of them were hungry for knowledge and loved their arts. Just imagine the kind of synapses they have created inside their brains with the development of both left and right brain hemispheres, by painting or playing the violin, and by studying mathematics, philosophy, and so on. Their brain was already trained to be highly developed, so just imagine the kind of will one must have to develop all these arts and sciences. To be an accomplished painter, sculptor, philosopher, and so on, you end up developing a great willpower just by learning all these things. Their lives were filled with moving energy, an active mindset, and even in their day-to-day lives routines they stood out from most people. They were in fact different, even though they seemed the same. As you see, these past Charisma School masters came from a much different background than most of us do. Most of them were, men with a lot of different fields of mastery, with a well-developed will and inner power, who among their travels or knowledge seeking happened to learn the teachings of energy, personal magnetism, and meditation. And with that, they increased their inner and outer power tenfold. These Renaissance men knew about the importance of influencing others. In fact, they needed it to support their activities. They needed sponsors so that they continued to learn more, experiment more, and pursue their endeavors. And to get these sponsors, it was a matter of influence. It was a common practice back then. So in the beginning, it was a matter of learning personal magnetism and charisma for financial stability. So their inner development of mind was accompanied by outer development of influencing, which became inner power and outer power, or in our understanding, charisma or personal magnetism. So for Charisma School, charisma means precisely the inner power, the inner development of our mind, will, brain, along with the outer development of influence, projection, attraction, as well as the outer power of influence, magnetism, and energy. Compare their mindset to our own daily lives now in a modern world. We may have considerably more technology, better living conditions, more opportunities to do many things since, let's face it, anyone can really learn whatever they want these days without seeking long for a teacher. If you want to learn to paint, you can find classes anywhere around the corner or even on the internet. Anywhere we go, we have this amazing knowledge tool, which is the internet, that allow us to know everything that we want. Our jobs are much more specialized than ever, with new knowledge coming out on a daily basis. And although it's normal to have some artistic endeavor, it's relegated to something that we do for fun as a hobby and rarely as a mastery endeavor that we devote our will and full power to it. Why? Well, there are so many things that are capturing our attention that we just cannot have time and energy for everything. So although we have access to all this knowledge, all these technologies, and we have far more superior living conditions, our inner power and even our brains are much less developed than these Charisma School masters from the past. Why? Our brains are mostly conditioned to a few types of intelligence, and that's it. Even our memories and attention span is being affected negatively by these new technologies. You can read The Shallows by Nicholas Carr to understand how technology is affecting us. And we no longer have the constant challenges and different sensory inputs they had in the past. Most of our lives are pretty much the same every day with few modifications here and there. There's barely anything truly new and truly challenging. In fact, when these early Charisma School masters wanted to teach this magnetism and charisma skill to others, they find themselves in a world of trouble and failed attempts. Why? Well, because they were teaching only the same kind of exercises that themselves had used. But it didn't work. How could they? You see, for them, just a few energetic and will exercises were more than enough to develop their inner and outer power. With that kind of development, with a kind of developed brain and already a good personal influence, they certainly wouldn't need that much. These early Charisma School masters, they already had many of the foundations they took for granted, like willpower, attention control, overall self-confidence level, different brain function, active mindset, different sensory modalities, and so on. But their students, most of the time, started to be simple people from their communities and didn't have the same kind of advancement mindset that they had. So they needed to adapt the early teachings. Not only did they need the same exercises, but more were needed if they're ever going to pass the knowledge. So a whole structure of personal magnetism teachings and charisma was born, with a set of skills, techniques, and methods that not only allow you to become a very influential person in your community and with the people that you surround yourself with, but also develop your inner world. It transformed you with a full control over yourself. That's also where Charisma School enters, and the true reason of why it was founded. Let's face it, none of us have the time or mental energy to dedicate ourselves to several different pursuits and still hold a job or career and have a family and so on. But then, in order to develop the same magnetism, we need a similar mental, social, and personal challenges that those activities will bring us. We need a similar, or best, brain development. We need the same social development. We need the same gaze development. Only this way we can develop the same personal magnetism and charisma of that old masters. That's why we have a different kind of courses for developing will, inner power, brain, sensory expansion, mental toughness, and so on. Each of these courses, and especially the bigger ones in our training academies, like the magnetic gaze, the 10 steps, and the sexual magnetism, all have specially developed challenges that increase some aspect of our inner or outer power in a big way in order to transform anyone into charismatic and magnetic. Naturally, the charismatic and magnetic persons of now are not the same of others in the past. They have different goals. I can give you several examples of how several individuals, just like you, use these teaching force. I've had corporate executives who wanted to move further up the corporate ladder. These weren't ordinarily do-nothing executives. They're already hard workers who just needed a simple boost in influencing others in order to get promoted. And naturally, since their inner world was suffering with stress, this also needed handling, especially the inner dialogue and the way they conducted their intention, which increased their productivity. By developing their magnetism and charisma, they can handle better the conflicts in their teams, their own goals and objectives, and especially influencing those who can give them advantage in a corporate world. Another kind of use was for regular everyday people. They simply wanted to become more social and have more attraction from women in their lives or influence in their peer group. Another kind of use was for therapists and coaches who need a bigger influences over the clients in order to get the lasting changes from them. Then we have the obvious use for teachers and public speakers. With charisma, they can now have a greater impact from the stage, and also, naturally, the salesmen can have a much bigger power of influence. But as explained, charisma is not summed to influence or to the greater outer impact. There's also, much more importantly, the inner power. The inner impact of these teachings, which is too great to ignore. Having the ability to do the things that we really want to do, when we want to do them, and how we want to do them. In short, it's a complete mastery of yourself, your actions, your thoughts and behaviors. No more procrastination, no more giving in to fear or anxiety. Without this inner power, even if you have influence over others, even if you have a personal magnetism, then it's not true charisma according to our own Charisma School teachings. As you can see, there's a lot of modern uses for charisma and personal magnetism and many different things that it can be used in order to improve our lives, but most important one, as I see it, it's the improvement of our own inner power.